Shawn Michaels' career up to 1998 was one of the greatest. He had a reputation of already being one of the best due to his style, but it was more than that. Michaels brought a fast-paced, often high-flying offense that dazzled the wrestling world. He was one of the best big match wrestlers in history, rarely having a disappointing performance, especially if the lights were at their brightest. The back injury halted his momentum, and what could have been a time that HBK would have been added to the Attitude Era ended up being an era he missed out on entirely. Shawn Michaels in the picture changes a lot. Perhaps he would have had an actual great match against Stone Cold at WrestleMania 15 or SummerSlam 1999, who knows. But Triple H, of course, would be a major story during this time for him. Instead, he sat at home and collected $750,000 a year. He did nothing but take coke slams in that time and show up high to shows, but WWF did that out of loyalty to HBK and the fact that he was very interested in going to WCW, so it seemed to benefit them. He did show up on TV every once in a while, but he wasn't in the best condition. He was already addicted to pills before his retirement, but it got worse. And he had a kid on the way. The kid did nothing to stop the addiction until a moment where HBK came to realization. He noticed that his kid began to understand what was around him, and that was enough for him to seek treatment. HBK was supposed to feud with Triple H around WrestleMania 17 time, but he showed up in horrible condition during one show, and he was exiled. WWF wanted to bring him back on many occasions, but he wasn't doing himself any favors. They wanted an NWO and DX story right before WrestleMania X8, but plans were scrapped, and when HBK did show up backstage on the last SmackDown before WrestleMania, he was still the same Shawn Michaels. It's unknown when he got clean exactly, but one date that was important to Michaels was April 24th, 2002. He said this was the day he became a born-again Christian. It's important to mention because HBK cleaned himself right before this moment in his life. Shawn Michaels made his first WWE appearance on the first episode of Confidential to speak about the Montreal Screwjob. What a time when Montreal wasn't a topic spoken to death, but such is life. On the June 3rd, 2002 episode of Raw, Shawn Michaels made his return to WWE. It was the first time he showed up inside of a ring since October of 2000, but this time around, he was introduced by his good friend Kevin Nash as the new member of the New World Order. The WWE's NWO went through more eras than 2000 WCW, which is saying a lot, and it was basically the clique with the NWO logo. WWE hyped up HBK's first promo for the entire episode of Raw the following week. He messed up calling it WWF, but the point was, HBK thought it was a strange business. He talked in shoot terms about Stone Cold's push and immediately turned on the fans for going with him. Shawn Michaels realized there wasn't loyalty, but there was one man that was there for him, Kevin Nash. Michaels had a lot to say about Kevin Nash and his growth, and HBK called this the most dominant group the wrestling world had ever seen, and I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I'm like, bro, he's talking about WWE's NWO, but then HBK got there. He said something's missing from the NWO. He questioned things and asked, what stands out? Big Show does, but X-Pac as well for being somebody who lacks focus. He called him the most talented wrestler in the business like it was 1998, and yeah, he went with Booker T. He got Booker T, yeah. Honestly, this was a good decision because Booker T didn't need the NWO. He was far too talented to be used as another body in this group. Okay, this confrontation was random, but so was this. Brock Lesnar and the NWO had some tension beside them because of Booker T. They terrorized him and Goldust, which was supposed to serve a much bigger story, at least on paper. Because Steve Irwin Runnels got on the NWO's nerves like crazy to the point where Nash threatened to beat up both Big Show and X-Pac if they lost to Booker T and Goldust. This segment was funny though. They got the job done nonetheless. The NWO was going horribly inside and outside the ring. The faction had too many issues, and Shawn Michaels said that he was going to announce a new member. He indicated it was Triple H due to their confrontation at King of the Ring. And there's many reasons to believe that Triple H would join the NWO. For one, his friends were all in the group. Number two, plenty of history to explore there. So there's some belief there. And HBK kicked out Big Show. How many turns does Big Show have? This wasn't even initiated by him. Well, actually, he was still in the group. The hell's wrong with this guy? Once again, Shawn Michaels reminded everyone that Triple H was with them. He tried to get to the game saying he comes out here to satisfy the fans and told them that he's got 2 weeks to show whether he's with them or against them. Later that night changed everything for the NWO and Shawn Michaels. JR just talked about Kevin Nash suffering a torn bicep and being out for 3 months, and from out of nowhere, he tore his quad. And the memes were unlocked. They rushed the ending of the match, and Shawn Michaels once again threatened Triple H. But then the NWO came to an end the following week. This was also the July 15, 2002 episode of Raw, which was a reset of sorts, and there's a reason why the early months of Ruthless Aggression felt so weird. A lot of plans involving the likes of Stone Cold, The Rock, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, they were scrapped, and July of 2002 cleared everything for WWE to take off. Shawn Michaels and the NWO served a greater purpose. It sounds useless and sounds like nothing seeing as HBK was busy hanging with Nash all the time, but there was a reason for it. But with that said, the NWO story was supposed to lead to a big SummerSlam match between Triple H and Kevin Nash. This would come after Triple H would reject the NWO's offer, and after that, he would eventually go against Shawn Michaels, who was a heel. But WWE had something much better and simpler. At Vengeance, Triple H was set to make his decision regarding Raw or SmackDown. He was leaning towards SmackDown, but Shawn Michaels made that safe. He did his best to convince Triple H with the return of DX, and that was enough for his choice to be Raw. Man, I don't care. Big Show isn't wrong here. HBK doesn't look so tough without the NWO. It seemed like DX was coming back. The fans reacted great to this. They were excited because for the first time in 4 years, D-Generation X, the original DX, was back. Well, not really, because Triple H dropped HBK with a pedigree, and for this moment, especially with the context, it felt like HBK was defenseless. Triple H the following week came out and straight away went after Michaels. He didn't show remorse and said his actions were because HBK didn't want to be his manager. But apparently, his ego couldn't handle that. In some ways, this was the cold reality. He wasn't the showstopper anymore. Triple H thought he was delusional for thinking he could hang with him and do DX again. But even then, the game still gave him the chance to be his manager. And this is when he heard some bad news. Triple H discovered HBK went through a car window and began getting paranoid over the guy. Eric Bischoff was a bit proud that Triple H did this because it was all about the TV ratings, and he told Bischoff, "Fuck you." The game began accusing others such as Chris Jericho. He pointed the finger at Y2J, seeing as he beat him at WrestleMania a couple of months ago. But then Jericho pointed the finger at him and made Triple H seem like the prime suspect. Even called him the cerebral ass. Triple H had his alibi. He was in the ring when it happened, but he was still on the search. Perhaps he could try a mirror? I'm sure it could give him an answer. Eric Bischoff had a big surprise for the end of the night. Shawn Michaels via satellite. HBK looked broken and battered. Triple H was promising to find the guy and go after him, and there was no answer for this attack. But then HBK said he got the footage of the attack, and apparently they had some 2025 CIA enhancer, and there he was, Triple H. I love this reveal. The suspense in the moment where it seemed like it would be Triple H, and he just waits for it to fully embrace his role as a cold-hearted villain who wants nothing more than the feeling of surpassing his old friend. Shawn Michaels being broken and forced into an uncomfortable position where he has to take matters into his own hands was now the story. Triple H said this was trying to prove that HBK was finished, and one thing to mention is that Triple H still wanted Shawn as a manager. He could have protected him, and instead of ending him permanently, he spared him in that parking lot. Shawn Michaels said he'll make a full recovery by SummerSlam, and the fans went crazy. Triple H didn't really take the challenge too serious, seeing as he was at the mercy of him a week earlier, and to Triple H, it was like talking to a wall. Shawn Michaels, the icon that everyone knew, was a thing of the past. He spoke about the things that HBK couldn't do as a man anymore, but HBK wasn't looking at this as a wrestling match. It was a fight, and desperate times call for desperate measures. Okay, this is a great segment. I love this one. Everything about the reveal, and HBK playing it casual until Triple H had no choice but to acknowledge the revelation. From one position, Triple H seemed bitter, and in some ways he wanted everyone to believe that he was the showstopper and that Shawn Michaels was beneath him. For HBK, it didn't matter if the odds were with Triple H. At the end of the day, his pride mattered more than a broken back or a bloody face. Road agent Triple H came out the following week to lay out a match. I'm of course talking about his match with Shawn Michaels.
To say the least, The Rock is something you're not undisputed champion, so shut up, bitch.
Iconic meme unlocked, and there was an ominous feeling in the air as it relates to Shawn Michaels. I'll describe it later. The game was ready for his battle against Shawn Michaels, and it was revealed that it was going to be an unsanctioned match. HBK showed up once during the build of the match to go after Triple H, and this was a crazy crowd. WWE in 2002 had some very underrated crowds, and for some reason, they faded sometime after WrestleMania 19. With that said, that feeling that I was talking about regarding HBK was that of one that where the expectations tempered, and WWE didn't want to make Shawn Michaels' return seem like one where he's going to be peak HBK and the showstopper, the headline, and the main event. WWE's intention was for you to fully believe that a weakened old man was going to show up to SummerSlam, but it was assured that Shawn Michaels, despite his limitations, would give it his all, not as a wrestler, but as someone who's insistent on making this a fight. The promo for this match was incredible. Two best friends at odds because of ego. The game wants to surpass Shawn Michaels, but he wants to do it with the Heartbreak Kid by his side, and seeing as Shawn Michaels did like the attention and believed he had more to offer inside the squared circle, Triple H decided he wanted to shut down the Shawn Michaels party once and for all. An unsanctioned match was almost Shawn Michaels' worst nightmare. However, even with the slimmest of chances compared to a wrestling match, this was a much better option. Shawn Michaels was back August 25th, 2002. The original match that Michaels wanted here was a match against Mr. McMahon. This was supposed to be a one-off. This one as well. It wasn't supposed to lead to anything more initially, but with regards to this match, amazing. HBK was wrestling much slower in the beginning when compared to his old self. That's logical, obviously. He did show shades of the Heartbreak Kid, but one thing I love about this match is the singular story of Shawn Michaels' back. Triple H didn't need to do much except go after the back. He wasn't used to the intensity of the WWE anymore, and with a back that was easily a target, it didn't bode well for his chances. Triple H was relentless in his approach with making no intentions to win the match, but to systematically obliterate what was already a weakened body part for Shawn Michaels. Anything else was a bonus. HBK was bloody and losing hope by the minute. It was a great and simple story. When the two wrestlers play their role, it makes for a memorable match because you have a pure heel with ill intentions and a good guy who's just trying to survive and hope and pray for an opening to make the most out of. The crowd was glued, and it follows a simple story, but the wrestlers make the most out of it to give a compelling match. Shawn Michaels' fighting spirit and resiliency made this match much closer than it should be, not to mention that he was making sacrifices that Triple H wouldn't even comprehend, all for the win. When Michaels did score the victory, he did it with a roll-up. And then Triple H slaughters his back with a brutal shot with a sledgehammer. Yeah, what a logical reaction, murder. But the feud climbed up another level because of this. Triple H lost the battle but won the war and made good on everything he said in the weeks leading up to SummerSlam. And this right here, this is an image worth 1,000 words. Triple H proud of leaving a lifeless Shawn Michaels sitting in a pool of blood. And JR was world class. Yeah, I almost thought he was gonna finish the job for Shawn Michaels at one point. There's a special magic as it pertains to this match. The pain and agony you feel for Shawn Michaels, whether or not he's gonna escape, and Triple H being one of Satan's best soldiers on this night. It was one of Triple H's very best heel performances. He also sold tremendously for HBK here. There was plenty of doubts for HBK's status and it felt like he was done. But then he showed up the next night. Nope, there's a 10-pound band-aid and there's Triple H. Triple H showed joy over taking out Shawn Michaels to the point where he couldn't walk. Shawn Michaels wasn't in the best condition and was forced to sit in a wheelchair for the time being. HBK showed gratitude to God over having the chance to wrestle but showed great distress over the sledgehammer shot. He told the game that you shouldn't hunt what you can't kill. The real quote, "don't hunt what you can't kill," was a notable phrase for this early version of second run HBK. He was a strong underdog for the first year of his return, and Triple H meanwhile became the new World Heavyweight Champion. The title returned but as a WWE belt, and he was busy dealing with both Rob Van Dam and Kane. Shawn Michaels meanwhile mentioned his struggles with rehab before revealing that he's getting much better and that Triple H should watch out. So they flipped the story. Triple H was the one coming after Michaels and now it was the opposite. Triple H wasn't selling any of this. This was the least of his worries and HBK popped out of the casket. Now I'm not gonna say this is symbolic, but this ironically signaled that HBK is back. Shawn Michaels in this small instance looked much faster than SummerSlam. It felt like he was becoming more and more comfortable with having an entire run. The best part was this, HBK was dancing like he conquered Hitler or something. But then again, some people see 2002 Triple H as a dictator. I know I don't. Shawn Michaels was one step ahead of Triple H. He cost him his main event tag team match the following week, and HBK revealed he was added to the Elimination Chamber match at Survivor Series. Retribution was the one word on Shawn Michaels' mind. To exact revenge on Triple H was the only thing he lived for in the world of wrestling. Also, there's something to say about HBK being in the first real ladder match in WWE history, the first Iron Man match, the first Hell in a Cell match, and now the first Elimination Chamber match. He was also the first Grand Slam champion. HBK was a true hater because he didn't care about the title just as long as Triple H didn't win anything. Triple H came out and said in this arena he's God. Yeah, God is gonna bore the crowd with 20-minute promos. Yeah, God is not gonna know when to wrap up a match. Okay, these two brawled with Triple H getting the upper hand. With that said, looking at this ring, WWE really had a lot of talented people, especially on the Raw brand. This pedigree looks like one of those inflatables that slips off your leg in the water. Hope you could get the image right in your mind. I just want to say Chris Jericho was a real demon around this time. That chin here got him acting like nobody mattered except himself. Survivor Series 2002 was an excellent show, but this match takes it another level. The match was really special and fully established the Elimination Chamber as a new draw for WWE. It's one of those matches you'd buy a pay-per-view for. Triple H was the most outstanding performer here. His throat was crushed by RVD, and even though he needed to be seated in a hospital bed, there he was taking suplexes and missile dropkicks. HBK's attire is always the thing people talk about, but it obviously doesn't take away from the match, unless you hate the color brown. HBK won the title here in a great moment, a moment that saw him overcome his own fears stemming from SummerSlam and emphatically overcoming the game in the first Elimination Chamber. I think it's crazy how this was HBK's only world title in his return because he felt like a strong threat in his title matches later on. We know the results now, but back then HBK was always a guy you couldn't count out to win the title. It almost feels wrong to see this version of HBK with a title. Shawn Michaels was hyped about being champion and thought that it's time to put himself to the test and defend the title. Rob Van Dam answered the call. Eric Bischoff made that match, and with regards to this one, it's such a strange one. Everything about it feels so weird. For one, HBK's attire was one of the worst in his career, and this match was served better if HBK had an edge like later on. They had tension in real life, and RVD wasn't really a fan of Michaels when he returned, but with that said, Michaels noticed RVD being passive about this opportunity and slapped some aggression into him for this challenge. The match was solid, but it felt like one of those where you know they're capable of more. Despite this, RVD was sensational. This match was old versus new. HBK was now the one working on limbs and slowing down the pace. Shawn Michaels, despite his achievement the previous week, wasn't able to match RVD, and after targeting the back near the end, RVD was in prime position to win the title. But apparently, nobody could win something unless it's Triple H. He gave Shawn Michaels a reason to retire with a backbreaker on the steel chair, and to make matters worse, HBK had to officiate a #1 contenders match for the game. Drama with this match. Shawn Michaels had to count the fall for Triple H, and it led to a brawl that saw HBK get the upper hand. Eric Bischoff decided to increase the stakes for the title match at Armageddon by making it a 3 Stages of Hell match. Now, heading into this match, Shawn Michaels had proven he could do it, but because of his situation, it felt like he was standing on a very weak foundation, and Ric Flair gave him a talk about ego and confidence. He had to face this tough conversation with himself in the past. The Nature Boy wanted him to understand that as good as he is, his time had passed him, and he should understand when to let go of this. Shawn Michaels walked out with a look of defeat in his face, and Triple H made matters worse, telling him that he's gonna force him to admit that he, Triple H, is the man. Shawn Michaels walked away and the game thought he was cruising towards a title victory. Despite that encounter, Shawn Michaels showed that he still had it in him. For HBK, it was Triple H mistaking his humility for weakness, and he promised to bring the showstopper. Okay, 3 Stages of Hell, a hardcore match, a steel cage match, and if it goes to the third fall, a ladder match. Shawn Michaels' journey back to wrestling brought plenty of struggles and setbacks, but with heart and passion, Shawn Michaels still had enough in him to overcome the game and win the World Heavyweight Championship. However, it seemed like HBK was quickly running out of steam, and with age comes uncertainty. But there was still hope that HBK would bring out the icon, the showstopper, the best that professional wrestling has to offer. Now, this match is often seen as messy. I think that comes with the 3 Stages of Hell stipulation. It's very hard to create a match inside 3, especially if the 3 are as distinctive as the hardcore match, the steel cage match, and the ladder match. And an issue that HBK and Triple H have is their matches have to be long and be some sort of epic encounter instead of being a battle that grows into being that epic match. When you have that element, it means that the length of the match is long for the sake of it. This was better served being a ladder match and a story about testing whether or not HBK has enough courage to go into a match that had evolved in his time away from WWE to being a match that threatens your career. There's some elements of this match to enjoy, but ultimately it was screwed the moment it ended up being 3 Stages of Hell. It's what I would call a false classic. I appreciate Triple H and Shawn Michaels, the way they sell and establish how much a match takes out of you, but if you're gonna do that, at least cut out some time. This spot was the best in the match, and it led to the game reclaiming his title. This is when the real reign of terror began, because Triple H would hold the title for 9 months, and the 9 months was crazy and very unexpected if you look at it from that time period's perspective. Alright, so that's Shawn Michaels' return. Good return. Initially, it wasn't so good with the whole NWO stuff. It was very messy and WWE didn't know what to do, but they steered it back on the right track with having HBK as the underdog returning to battle. It makes sense. If you want more of HBK, we got the following feud with Chris Jericho. We got this video, Evolution, where HBK's extensively involved. You can watch those if you want to follow his storyline from here on. So yeah. Alright, what'd you guys think of Shawn Michaels' return in 2002? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the L button on the like button and perhaps that sweet chin music on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.